The boy woke up every morning before the sun rose. Not because he wanted to, but because the cold always found him first. The thin cardboard he slept on did little to protect him from the hard pavement beneath his small body. He was only 12 years old, yet his eyes carried the tired look of someone who had seen too much of the world too soon. Around him, the city slowly came alive. Shopkeepers lifted metal shutters. Buses roared past, and people hurried to places they believed mattered. No. One noticed the boy as he quietly stood up, folded his worn jacket, and brushed the dust from his clothes. He had no home, no parents waiting for him, and no idea what tomorrow would bring. His parents had died years ago in an accident, and since then the streets had become his only shelter. Some nights he slept near a closed bakery because the smell of bread made him feel less hungry. Other nights he stayed near a temple where he felt a little safer. Hunger was his constant companion, a dull pain in his stomach that never fully went away. Still, he tried to stay hopeful, telling himself that surviving one more day was a small victory. Every morning, he walked through busy streets looking for odd jobs. Sometimes he helped shop owners clean their storefronts. Sometimes he carried bags for strangers who barely looked at him. Most days, people ignored him, some crossed the road to avoid him. Others assumed he was a thief just because of his dirty clothes. Those moments hurt him deeply, but he had learned not to show it. He believed that if he stayed kind, the world might one day be kind to him too. Despite having so little, the boy had a gentle heart. When he saw younger children begging, he shared whatever food he had, even if it meant sleeping hungry. He believed that kindness was the only thing no one could take away from him. At night, he often stared at the sky, wondering if his parent could see him. He promised them silently that he would not turn bitter or cruel, no matter how hard life became. School was something he missed deeply. He loved learning and used to dream of becoming someone important. Now he picked up old newspapers to read headlines and try to remember the lessons his mother once taught him. Letters and words felt like small treasures, reminding him that he was more than just a homeless boy. He was someone with dreams, even if those dreams felt far away. As the day went on, the sun grew warmer, but the boy's hunger grew stronger. He had not eaten since the night before. His legs felt weak as he walked, yet he refused to beg loudly like others. Instead, he waited for chances to earn something honestly. He believed that dignity mattered, even when life was unfair. That belief guided his actions and shaped the kind of person he was becoming. The streets were noisy and unforgiving. Horns blared, people shouted, and footsteps rushed past him endlessly. In all that noise, the boy felt invisible, but inside him was a quiet strength, built from hardship and hope. He did not know that this ordinary morning, filled with cold air and empty pockets, would soon change his life forever. He was simply trying to survive another day, unaware that his kindness, learned on the streets, was about to be tested in a way that would surprise everyone. The boy walked slowly through the busy street, his eyes scanning the ground and the faces around him. He had learned to notice small details, like dropped coins, half-eaten food, or people who looked kind enough to offer work. The city was loud and restless, but he moved quietly through it, carrying his hunger and hope together. That morning felt no different from others, yet something in the air seemed to pull him forward. Near a crowded bus stop, he noticed an old lady standing alone. She looked fragile and confused, holding two heavy bags that seemed far too much for her thin arms. Her clothes were simple and clean, but old-fashioned, and her shoes looked worn from walking. People rushed past her without slowing down. Some bumped into her bags. Others pretended not to see her at all. The boy stopped walking and watched from a distance. The old lady tried to lift one bag, but it slipped from her hand and fell to the ground. Fruits rolled across the pavement, drawing annoyed looks from passers-by. A man shouted at her to be careful. A woman shook her head and walked away. The boy felt a familiar pain in his chest. He knew that feeling of being ignored when help was needed the most. He hesitated for a moment. His stomach was empty, his feet hurt, and he still needed to find food for the day. Helping her would cost him time and energy he could barely spare. Yet his legs moved on their own, guided by something deeper than hunger. He walked toward her and knelt down to pick up the fallen fruits. "It's okay, Grandma," he said softly, Try not to scare her. I'll help you." The old lady looked at him with surprise, then relief. Her eyes were kind but tired. "Thank you, my child," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I was afraid I might fall." The boy carefully placed the fruits back into the bag and lifted both bags with effort. They were heavier than they looked, but he did not complain. He asked her where she needed to go, and she pointed toward a narrow street not far away. As they began walking, people stared at the boy with curiosity. Some looked suspicious, others looked amused. No one stopped them. As they walked, the old lady asked him simple questions: where he lived, whether he went to school, and if he had eaten that day. The boy answered honestly. He told her he lived wherever he could find a safe place at night. He said he had not eaten yet, but he was used to it. He spoke calmly, without self-pity, as if hardship was just another fact of life. The old lady listened quietly, her heart growing heavier with each word. She noticed how polite he was, how carefully he walked beside her to make sure she did not trip. When they reached a small bench, she asked him to rest for a moment. She opened her bag and offered him a small packet of food. The boy shook his head gently. "You should eat first," he said. "You need strength more than me." That simple sentence stayed with her. She insisted, and only then did he accept a few bites, eating slowly and gratefully, not like a starving child, but like someone who respected the food he was given. After resting, he picked up the bags again without being asked. When they finally reached her destination, a quiet building with old walls, the boy placed the bags down carefully. The old lady reached in her purse and pulled out some money. Holding out to him, he stepped back immediately. "I helped because you needed help," he said, "not for money." She looked at him closely then, as if seeing him for the first time. She thanked him again and asked his name. He told her, then turned to leave, thinking only about finding his next meal. He did not know that this small moment, this chance encounter on a crowded street, had planted a seed that would soon change his life in ways he could never imagine. The boy walked away from the old building with slow steps, his stomach still half empty, but his heart strangely light. He did not look back, because he never expected anything more from that meeting. For him, helping someone in need was as natural as breathing. Even if life had taught him to expect nothing in return, the street welcomed him again with its noise and chaos, pulling him back into his everyday struggle. He had only taken a few steps when he heard the old lady call out to him again. Her voice was soft, but there was urgency in it. The boy turned, a little worried that he might have done something wrong. She smiled and asked him to sit with her for a moment on the steps near the entrance. He agreed, lowering himself carefully beside her. She asked him how long he had been living on the streets. The boy paused before answering, then told her the truth. He spoke about losing his parents, about nights spent under open skies, about learning to survive without guidance or protection. His words were simple, but each one carried weight. He did not cry or complain. He spoke like someone who had already accepted pain as part of life. The old lady listened without interrupting, her eyes filled with emotion. Though she tried to hide it, she asked him what he wanted most in life. The boy looked down at his hands, dirty and scarred from work. After a moment, he said he wanted to go back to school. He said he missed learning, holding books, and believing in a future that fell out of reach now. She nodded slowly, then asked him if he ever felt angry at the world. The boy thought about it carefully. He admitted that sometimes he did, especially when people treated him like he did not exist. But he also said that anger made the nights colder and the days harder. So he tried to let it go. Choosing kindness, he explained, helped him survive without losing himself. The old lady smiled at that, a smile filled with both pride and sadness. She asked him if he would help her with one more small thing. She pointed toward a nearby shop and said she needed to buy medicine. But walking alone made her nervous. The boy agreed immediately, standing up and offering his arm for support. Inside the shop, the owner looked at the boy with suspicion. Watching his every move, the boy noticed it but said nothing. He stood quietly while the old lady bought her medicine. When she accidentally dropped some coins on the floor, the boy quickly picked them up and handed them back without counting them. That simple act did not go unnoticed. Outside the shop, the old lady pretended to struggle with her purse and let a few bills slip toward the boy's feet. He saw them and pushed them back gently with his shoe. Telling her she had dropped something, she looked at him closely again, almost testing him. Then she thanked him and put the money away. Before leaving, she asked him where he planned to go next. He shrugged and said he would look for work or food like always. She nodded and asked him to meet her again the next day at the same place. Just for a short talk, she said. The boy hesitated, unsure why she wanted to see him again, but something in her voice felt sincere, so he agreed. As he walked away that time, the boy felt a strange sense of curiosity. He wondered why the old lady cared so much, why she listened to him like his words mattered. He did not know that she was quietly observing his character, testing his honesty, his patience, and his heart, not to judge him, but to understand the kind of person he truly was. That night, as he lay under the open sky, the boy thought about their conversation, about school, kindness, and the choices people make when no one is watching. He had no idea that the old lady carried secrets far bigger than he could imagine, or that his simple honesty was already setting powerful events in motion. For now, he closed his eyes, unaware that his life was standing on the edge of a silent turning point. The next morning arrived quietly, wrapped in a soft golden light that spread across the streets. The boy woke earlier than usual, not because of hunger or cold, but because his mind kept returning to the old lady. He remembered her calm voice, the way she listened to him as if his words mattered. That feeling was new to him, and it stayed with him as he washed his face at a public tap and headed toward the meeting place they had agreed on. When he reached the spot, he did not see her at first. The bench was empty, and for a moment he thought she might not come. He sat down anyway. Watching people pass, taxis stopped, shopkeepers argued over prices, and school children laughed as they walked by. Each sound reminded him of a life that felt close yet unreachable. After a few minutes, a black car slowed near the sidewalk. It was clean and expensive, the kind of car he usually avoided. The door opened, and to his surprise, the old lady stepped out. She was dressed the same as before, simple and modest. Nothing about her appearance suggested anything unusual. She smiled when she saw him, clearly pleased that he had come. They greeted each other and began walking slowly. She asked him how his night had been and whether he had eaten. The boy answered honestly, saying the night was cold but manageable, and that he had shared some bread with another homeless child. The old lady paused for a second when she heard that, studying his face carefully. As they walked, she told him stories from her past, speaking of simple days, hard work, and lessons learned from mistakes. She did not mention money or success, only values, honesty, patience, and the importance of treating people with respect. The boy listened closely, feeling like he was learning something important, even if he could not explain why. They stopped near a small park, where the old lady asked him to help her sit down. She looked tired, and for a moment, her strong and calm expression softened. She thanked him again for coming, then asked him a surprising question. She asked if he believed that rich people and poor people were truly different. The boy thought carefully before answering. He said he believed pain and kindness felt the same for everyone, no matter how much money they had. He said he'd seen poor people act cruelly and rich people act kind. And the opposite too. He believed character mattered more than wealth. The old lady smiled, but there was something deeper in her eyes now, almost like pride. She then asked him what he would do if someone suddenly offered him a lot of money. The boy admitted he would be grateful, but said he would rather have a chance to change his life properly. He said money could disappear, but education and guidance could last forever. Those words settled heavily in the air between them. As they continued talking, the boy noticed something strange. People passing by seemed to greet the old lady with respect. Some nodded, others smiled politely. A man in a suit even stopped and asked if she needed anything. She thanked him and sent him away gently. The boy did not think much of it, assuming she was simply well known in the area. What he did not notice was how carefully the old lady watched him in those moments, how she observed his reactions, his lack of curiosity about her connections. His focus remained on her comfort, not on who she might be. Each small detail confirmed what she already suspected about his character. When it was time to part ways, she placed her hand on his shoulder and told him she was proud of him. The boy felt a warmth he had not felt in a long time. She told him that life sometimes tested people quietly, without announcing itself, and those who passed such tests often did not even realize they were being tested. As she left, returning to the waiting car, the boy stood still, watching her go, confused but calm. He had no idea that the woman he had helped was hiding a life far beyond his imagination, or that she was the mother of a powerful millionaire, carefully choosing who deserved a chance not based on pity, but on integrity. The truth remained hidden for now, but the walls around it were already beginning to crack. The days that followed felt different to the boy. Even though his life on the streets remained the same, he still woke up on cold pavements, still searched for work, still felt hunger twist inside him. Yet something unseen had begun to move around him, like a quiet current guiding his path. He did not know it, but the old lady had decided to watch him more closely, not from a distance of wealth, but from the lens of truth. That afternoon, as the boy rested near a crowded market, he noticed the old lady approaching again. This time she carried only a small purse and walked slower than usual. Her steps seemed uncertain, and her hands trembled slightly. The boy stood up immediately and went to her side, offering his support without waiting to be asked. His reaction alone made her heart heavier. She told him she needed to visit a place across town, somewhere unfamiliar. She said she felt uncomfortable going alone and asked if he could guide her. The boy glanced at the sky, thinking about how far it might be and how little energy he had. Yet he nodded without hesitation. He did not ask for payment. He did not ask questions. They walked through busy streets and narrow alleys. The old lady deliberately chose difficult paths, places where crowds thinned and help was less certain. She slowed her pace, pretending to be tired. At one point, she stumbled slightly, and the boy quickly steadied her, standing between her and the road, protecting her from passing vehicles. As they walked, she began asking him questions that felt heavier than before. She asked what he would do if someone tried to cheat him, or if he found something valuable on the road. The boy answered simply, saying that doing the right thing helped him sleep at night. He said losing his honesty would leave him with nothing at all. Near a small shop, the old lady stopped and asked him to buy her water using money she handed him. The amount was more than enough. When he returned, he gave her the water and every single coin back. Explaining exactly what it cost, she looked at him silently, her eyes shining with something close to tears. Later, she pretended to receive a phone call and stepped aside, leaving her purse on the bench next to the boy. It was open slightly, and he could see money inside. Anyone else might have been tempted, but the boy moved the purse closer to her coat, guarding it until she returned. When she came back and thanked him, he only nodded, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The sun began to set, and the journey left the boy exhausted. His feet hurt, and his head felt light from hunger. Noticing this, the old lady offered to buy him a full meal at a nearby place. The boy agreed this time, but only after making sure she was comfortable first. During the meal, he ate slowly, respectfully, never asking for more than he needed. Before they parted ways, the old lady asked him one final question. She asked if he believed people were rewarded immediately for good actions. The boy shook his head and said that sometimes good people suffer the most, but he also believed that doing good shaped who you became, even if no reward ever came. Those words stayed with her. They confirmed everything she needed to know. The tests she had placed before him were never meant to trap him, only to reveal his heart. And his heart, shaped by hardship, remained unbroken and honest. As she walked away that evening, the old lady made a quiet decision. She would no longer observe from the shadows. Soon, the truth would surface, and when it did, the boy's life would change, not because he asked for help, but because he proved he deserved a chance. The next day began like any other, but the air felt heavy with something unspoken. The boy went about his routine, helping where he could, staying invisible where he had to. Yet deep inside, he sensed that something was coming. He could not explain it, only feel it, as if the streets themselves were holding their breath. By late afternoon, the old lady appeared again, but this time she was not alone. A well-dressed man walked a few steps behind her, tall, confident, and clearly important. People on the street moved aside for him without realizing why. His presence carried authority, and the boy noticed it immediately. He instinctively stood straighter, unsure whether he was in trouble or not. The old lady greeted the boy warmly and asked him to sit with them. The man watched silently at first, his sharp eyes studying the boy from head to toe. not with judgment, but with curiosity. The boy felt nervous, yet he remained polite, answering questions honestly when asked. The man finally spoke, asking the boy how he knew the old lady. The boy explained simply, telling him about the first day, the bags, the walk, and the help he offered. He did not exaggerate or try to impress. He spoke as if those moments were ordinary. The man's expression slowly changed as he listened. Then the old lady took a deep breath and said something that made the boy's heart skip. She introduced the man as her son. She said he owned companies, buildings, and businesses across the city. The boy's eyes widened slightly, but he said nothing. He did not suddenly change his tone or behavior, which surprised both of them. The man looked at his mother and nodded, then turned back to the boy. He asked him why he had helped her when so many others ignored her. The boy answered without hesitation, saying that loneliness was harder than hunger, and no one deserved to feel invisible. Those words hit the man deeply, because they described exactly how his mother had felt. The old lady then revealed the full truth. She told the boy that she was the mother of a millionaire, that she had lived a comfortable life, but chose to walk the streets quietly to see how people treated her when they thought she had nothing. She explained that she had been disappointed many times, until she met him. The boy listened in silence, processing the information slowly. He did not ask for money. He did not beg. He only said he was glad she had not been harmed. His reaction stunned the man more than any dramatic response could have. The man stood up and extended his hand, thanking the boy for protecting his mother. He said that many people showed kindness only when they expected something in return, but the boy had shown kindness when it cost him the most. That, he said, was rare. He offered the boy help, not as charity, but as an opportunity. He spoke about education, safety, and guidance. He made it clear that the boy would not be handed wealth, but a chance to build his own future. The boy listened carefully, his eyes filling with emotion for the first time. For a moment, he struggled to find words. Then he thanked them both, saying that being seen and respected already felt like a gift. The old lady placed her hand over his, her eyes shining with pride. As the sun dipped low, the streets around them continued as usual, unaware that a life had just changed course. The boy did not know exactly what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time, tomorrow felt real, and it began not with money, but with truth, recognition, and a kindness that had finally come full circle. The boy woke up the next morning with a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. The streets felt the same, cold and busy, yet nothing seemed ordinary anymore. The memory of the previous day, of learning who the old lady really was and meeting her son, lingered in his mind. He could not stop thinking about the offer that had been made to him, a chance at a life he had only dreamed of. He walked carefully toward the place they had agreed to meet. The city buzzed around him, but he barely noticed the noise. His mind replayed every word the millionaire's son had said about education, guidance, and opportunity. Unlike money thrown at him, this offer felt meaningful, something that could truly change his life. He remembered the kindness that had started it all, and it gave him courage. When he arrived, the old lady was already there, smiling warmly. Beside her stood her son, his presence commanding yet gentle. The boy felt a mix of awe and shyness, but he held himself steady, ready to show that he was worthy of their trust. They began walking together toward a quiet building, a place filled with books, classrooms, and people ready to help. It was not a palace or a mansion, just a place of learning and growth. The old lady's son spoke to the boy about what he would need to do, about rules, discipline, and responsibilities. The boy listened carefully, nodding at every word. He promised to study, to work hard, and to respect every opportunity given to him. His honesty and determination impressed them both. They saw not just a homeless boy, but someone with strength, patience, and integrity. Over the next few days, the boy began a new routine. The streets were no longer his home. He was guided to a small room with a bed, a desk, and books stacked neatly. For the first time in years, he felt safe. He attended classes, learned basic subjects he had missed, and even started reading stories about people who had overcome challenges like his. Every lesson felt like a small victory. Every smile from the teachers felt like recognition. Outside of learning, he helped around the building, carrying supplies, cleaning, and organizing. He continued the kindness he had always shown, helping younger children, sharing his meals and offering a hand to anyone who needed it. His character shone, proving that the qualities that had impressed the millionaire's mother were not temporary. They were part of him, forged through years of hardship. One afternoon, the old lady took him aside. She told him that life was about choices, and that he had already made the most important ones. Choosing kindness, honesty, and respect had brought him here. She reminded him that wealth could never buy these qualities. Only experience and heart could create them. The boy nodded, understanding more than words could say. By the end of the week, the boy felt transformed, not because he had gained comfort or security alone, but because someone had seen him for who he truly was. His future was no longer a guessing game. He had guidance, opportunity, and hope. The streets that had shaped him were still part of him, but they no longer defined him. As he lay in bed that night, reading by the small lamp, he thought about the journey that had brought him here, from cold pavements and hunger to classrooms and mentorship. He realized that his life had changed not because of money, but because of the trust and belief shown in his heart. And for the first time, he felt ready to face the world, not just to survive, but to grow, thrive, and make his own story. The boy woke up to sunlight spilling softly through the window. A gentle warmth filled the small room, so different from the cold streets he had once called home. He stretched and looked around, seeing books stacked neatly on the desk, clothes folded carefully in the corner, and a small mirror that reflected a face he was beginning to recognize as his own. Not just a homeless boy, but someone with purpose, with hope, with a future to shape. He quickly got dressed and headed toward the classroom. His steps were lighter than they had ever been. Each movement carried a sense of determination he had never known before. Teachers greeted him with smiles, and other children waved, curious about the boy who had arrived quietly and carried himself with quiet dignity. He returned their smiles, feeling part of a world that had always seemed far away. The old lady waited for him near the entrance, as she often did. Her eyes sparkled as she asked about his sleep, his lessons, and his day ahead. She had become a guide, a mentor, and a quiet presence in his life. Her son, the millionaire, had entrusted her with a task greater than wealth. He had asked her to help shape the boy's character, and she took it seriously, treating each moment with care. Over the weeks, the boy's life began to settle into a rhythm, one filled with learning, growth, and small joys he had never known. He discovered the pleasure of reading full stories instead of headlines, of writing letters he could share with teachers, and of understanding concepts that once seemed impossible. Each lesson was a victory, each small success a reminder that he was capable of more than survival. Outside the classroom, the boy continued the habits that had defined him on the streets. He helped younger children, carried books, and shared what little he could. His kindness became a quiet influence, inspiring others. Teachers often remarked on how unusual it was to see someone so humble yet so determined. And the old lady watched every day, proud of the boy who had never sought recognition but had earned it anyway. One afternoon, she took him to a small garden near the building, where flowers bloomed in careful rows. She asked him to sit, and then told him that life would test him in ways he could not imagine. But the lessons he had learned, the patience, honesty, and courage, would guide him through any challenge. She reminded him that true wealth was not in money, but in character, and he had already begun building it. The boy listened quietly, understanding the depth of her words. For the first time, he realized that his journey was not just about escaping the streets, but about becoming someone who could face life fully, someone who could help others as he had been helped, someone who could carry kindness forward, just as he had carried it in small acts without expectation. Months passed, and the boy's transformation became undeniable. From a hungry child on the streets to a student full of promise, his life now moved forward on a path built from trust, hard work, and compassion. He excelled in his lessons, formed friendships, and even found joy in small routines that once felt impossible. The city outside continued as usual, but he moved through it with a new awareness, confident and grounded. One evening, as he prepared for bed, the old lady's son visited quietly. Smiling at the boy's progress, he praised the boy not for what he had, but for who he had become, and he reminded him that life would continue to test him, but that he had already proven he could meet any challenge with courage and heart. The boy felt a warmth he had never known, a sense of belonging, and a certainty that his future was no longer uncertain. Lying down, the boy reflected on how far he had come, from sleeping on cold pavements to sitting in rooms filled with books and hope, from surviving day by day to planning for years ahead, from being ignored to being seen for who he truly was. He understood that every act of kindness, every choice to be honest, and every small step had led him here, to a life not of luck, but of earned opportunity and a heart strong enough to carry it forward. And for the first time, he closed his eyes with a calm certainty that his story had only just begun.